Oceanagad, Yondi and East Aquadoan. Hello everybody, my name is Noel Grayson and I'm here to talk with you a little bit about bows. I'm a full-blood Cherokee from right here in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. I was born on Stick Ross Mountain, what they call Nubbin Ridge. I grew up there for a little bit and I've been making bows most of my life, starting out with just like most kids do, just take a string and a stick and bend it. But after I got older, I actually got into it and actually just kept doing it. Bows were primarily used for hunting. Okay, now you took just a bow like this. Cherokee bows were just straight flat bows, really no handle. There was no frills to them, nothing fancy about them. Now I myself, I prefer to use a Cothwet de Longue, yellow locust. Now, back in the Southeast, we used a lot of black locust, we used a lot of hickory, ash. I've been told we used a lot of ash, but black locust mainly, okay? It's a good tough wood, but once we came to Oklahoma in Indian Territory in this area, we started using a yellow locust wood, which is, to me, it's my medium, okay? That's what I actually like to use. I don't mind using the other ones, but I like using yellow locust. Some people call it bodark, some people call it horse apple, hedge apple. Now once I get a tree down, I'll look at that tree and try to get optimum usage out of it. I'll look at that tree and say, okay, now that's a good straight tree and I can get a 6-foot section here, a 6-foot section there, a 6-foot section there. And even if it's crooked a little bit, a good straight piece like this is hard to find. But even if it's crooked, you can heat it and bend it and straighten it out, right? But back in the Southeast, black locust grew pretty straight, so we really didn't have to worry about that. We had a lot of wood. You got to remember, right? A lot of wood to choose from. You can go out there and pick just good, immaculate trees. Every piece of wood is different, so you can't go out there. There's no formula to it that says, okay, it's got to be this wide, this thick, blah, 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 Every piece of wood, just like people, is different, right? One thing I will tell you, you got to work with the grain, okay? I can't stress that enough. No matter what you're doing, working wood, anybody who works wood will tell you that you got to work with the grain. You've heard that, 1,000 times. Maybe at a job, work with the grain, not against it, Back in the day, they talk like, now DeSoto talks about it. Hernando DeSoto, when he came to the Southeast, he talks about getting hold of a bow, and he says that his men cannot pull the hand to the face. Now I assume that it's one of his writers, one of his scribes. But if you cannot pull the hand to the face, that means you can't get a full draw. Now 200 years later, Lieutenant Henry Timberlake comes and stays with us, and basically he writes the same thing. He says his men grab one of those Cherokee bows and they're trying to pull it back and they can't do it. But he writes in his memoirs, he says, much to the delight of the Cherokee. And so basically the guys are laughing about it. All those Cherokee guys are laughing because they can't pull the bows back. But the bows back then, there's a misconception that we used a pinch grip, right? Pinch the end of the arrow like this and pulled it back. Now you pull a bow like that back by pinching it, I don't want to get pinched by that, man, right? We used a 3-finger under the arrow like this, and you pinched it against the string and pulled it back. You can look at old records and see this, okay? Arrows we made in the Southeast were made out of a piece of river cane generally, okay? That's not to say that we didn't use other things, okay? Because I've seen arrows, historic arrows, that were made out of a piece of hickory that was shaved down with a big blunt piece on the end of it, okay? I've heard older gentlemen, Cherokee men, say we use dogwood shoots also. Which anything that's I can straighten out and use for an arrow, I will use for an arrow, but we have a lot of cane in the area. DeSoto, when he invaded the Southeast, they get a hold of one of our arrowheads like this and they say it's diamond-like. That's not to say that it's shaped like a diamond, okay? That's to say that it has facets in it. It was chipped. It's diamond-like. Now, I've actually made this one, chipped this point out, I've tied it on, Used a little bit of pine sap in there to glue it in. I've tied it on using deer sinew, same way with the opposite side. I've used turkey feathers and deer sinew to tie it all together. Now, it's said that we would make quivers full of these and use them all up at one time hunting. Now, of course, you know, to launch the arrow, back to the bow. The bow itself, nothing fancy about it. Rectangular in cross section, right? Long flat bow, really no handle to speak of. Strings we used back then, you could use anything. You can use plant fiber. Bear intestine was pretty popular, but it's a pretty stout piece of material. Plant fibers, some of the older guys I've talked to used groundhog skin. It's pretty tough. Squirrel skin, but it's got to be a fox squirrel. Can't be one of these little gray squirrels you see around. Being recognized as a Cherokee National Treasure was definitely an honor because I was the youngest one to ever receive it at that point. I'm still the youngest male to get it, right? But with that honor comes, I have to uphold that. I think it's important to pass it down because for me, it's an unbroken legacy. That's how the Cherokee Nation described it to me because I learned it, you know, from my father, who learned it from his father, so on and so on and so on. But I didn't just learn from my father, I learned from everybody. Okay, I'm not so arrogant as to say that I know everything. I'm always willing to learn, right? If somebody says, hey, you know, you can do this and it's, you know, makes it easier, I say, sure. You know, if it makes it easier on me at my age, yes, definitely. But I'll pass it down to kids, you know, and most kids, you know, they want to learn how to make an arrowhead, maybe, you know, but they find out there's a little work involved in it, you know, and it kind of drift off. But as long as I can plant that seed, they might come back to it as long as they can say, I remember seeing it done.